Hi, this is Gary. Welcome to today's video. This is video 3 in my series looking at the top pens from 2021. Today we're going to be focusing on pens between 50 and 100 Australian dollars. So join me down on the mat. Let's take a look at the pens I've picked to look at in this top 5 list. Here we are down on the mat. Time to look at the top 5 pens between 50 and 100 Australian dollars. Pen number 1 goes to this, the PenBBS 487 in Corderite. I love the pattern on this. You can see we've got blues, we've got some browns, which can be seen here more in the cap. But then we've got whites and silvers, just slowly twisting this round. This pen's unusual in the fact that it's a magnetic filler. So up here where we can see this silver disc, if this works, what should be happening when I take off the cap, there's a magnet in the top of the cap here. You can see how it joins there. Then what should happen is I should be able to drag this down the outside and that should drag down this plunger. It doesn't work. I've never been able to get it to work. That plunger just will not move no matter what I do. So I like the look of the pen. I like the feel of the pen. So I thought to myself, well, what can I do? Well, it was a simple answer. I just eyedropper fill it. It works perfectly. So all I do is I unscrew the section out of the body and fill the ink into the body. Whilst that cap's off, I love this section. It's got a nice conical shape. Really feels comfortable to use. And there's no big lip at the bottom. The nib, that's a number 6 size nib. It's a PenBBS nib, and I've got to be honest, I've been really lucky. I've never had a PenBBS nib that I've had an issue with. Let's show it writing. So I'm going to start right at the very top of the page. So I've got a PenBBS 487. It's a fine nib. And this cost 54 Australian dollars. The ink is by Diamine and it's Oxford Blue. I'll move the mic so you can hear it right. So writing, it feels a little bit scratchy. It's as if the pen's actually catching on the paper. Now this is Oxford Optic paper, so it's not a smooth paper, but it's not overly rough. It's still pleasant. I've got to be honest, this is one of my favourite pens to write with because it doesn't hurt. It's a nice size. Because I've eyedroppered it, the ink in there lasts months between fills. At the moment, as you can see here, I've got Diamine Oxford Blue. Up till now, this has only ever had Colourverse Supernova, but I wanted to explore some different inks in this pen, which is why it's got Oxford Blue at the moment. This to me, it's a really nice dark blue colour. It's not tending black, it is blue. So when I look at it over the camera, it just looks so nice. You know, we've got blues, and I'm not sure, maybe I can see hints of red coming through occasionally, but that just could be my old man eyes. Let's take a look at the Tomoe River paper. So this is 52 GSM Tomoe River paper in a Galen leather notebook. As I'm calling out here, I normally use Colourverse Supernova, which is a brighter blue, and it's got a lot more sheen in it. So this ink, it's a little bit too dark for me. It's not unlivably dark, but I would prefer just a lighter tone. I love the pen. I love the way it feels in my hand. It writes nice. I've never had any issues with it, never had any skips, never had any hard starts. It's a pen, can sit for weeks, and when you pick it up, write straight away. As said, it was a little bit scratchy. I'm being very, very picky here. I don't see much in the way of shading, so there's not a lot of character coming out. This is a fine nib, puts down a fine line, does what it should, it writes. Let's take a look at it in my hand. There we go. So a nice size. You know, it's not going to be waggling around because it's too long, but it's also not going to be getting caught in the crook between my finger and my thumb. Really comfy, and as I say, no lip at the bottom, so I can hold this and write for hours and hours. Pop that cap back on. So this is the PenBBS 487 and Diamine Oxford Blue. Just move the paper up a wee bit now. Pen number 2 is the Moonman M800. This particular one has got a Bock fine nib on it. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that these Moonman M800s, they're one of my favourite pens. Absolutely love them. Let's take a look at the colouring of this one. This is amber. There's another 3 colours, and I do have one of each of them. Just look at that. Quite nice. You know, you've got blacks, you've got the amber, but then you come round and you've got this like golden colours and whites and silvers. Such a pretty pen. Now, you would be right to say, but that looks like a Leonardo Memento Zero. It does, doesn't it? Now, I'm not going to say it's a clone or a copy, but it's definitely inspired by. So this pen, it's a cartridge converter. There's a cartridge converter there. It's all metal inside, so you're not going to be able to eyedropper this, which is a shame because I think if I could eyedropper this, or like the Leonardos where it's got a piston, I think that would be perfect. The nib, number 6. I say this one is a Bock nib, 2-tone. I like 2-tone nibs. Let's do some writing though. So we've got here a Moonman M800. It's got a Bock fine nib, and this cost me 66 Australian dollars. You actually pay more to get a version with the Bock nib. The ink by Herbin, and it's Terre de Fouet. So this to me, well, it's a brown ink. You know, it's there to match with the pen. Still not 100% certain on it though, because it's not got as much orange. Again, I'll just fetch that pen in. There are some shades which it does pull out. Let's move the mic so we can hear it right. It's such a nice writer. It's really smooth. There's no catching. It feels like it's gliding over the paper. Let's take a look at the Tomoe River paper. You know, I'm calling out here. I love my Moonman M800s. And they did lead me into buying some Leonardo pens. And I will be honest again, I love my Leonardo pens. The pen, it's just so nice in the hand. It feels well balanced, fits nicely. It's not uncomfortable. It's a pen I can use for hours at a time. Again, similar to that 487, it's not getting in the way. It's enabling my writing. The Bock nibs I've had no issues with. They write perfect. You know, you can hear there, it's nice and smooth. Not an awful lot of feedback. I've got 2 pens with the Bock nib, and I've bought 2 pens with the Moonman nib. I have had issues with the Moonman nibs. They're only minor issues, or at least that's how they started. But because of the beauty of these being standard number 6 size nibs, all I did was swap out the nibs and that fixed the issues. So now in the pen that I had, which it got to the stage where it just would not write, I've now got a broad Yo-O nib. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's swiftly becoming one of my favourite pens. And I did debate whether to use that in today's writing test. But I thought, no, I've changed the nib so it's no longer the standard Moonman that you can buy. And that's what I'm trying to do, is make this video about pens that you can go out and buy. When we look at this writing, again, on the Tomoe River, not a lot in the way of shading. And if we look at the optic paper, again, little tiny bits of shading, but not overly much. Looking at the pen in my hand, again, it's a nice fit. I think I would like it a tiny bit longer. The Leonardo I've got is a Memento Zero Grande, which is slightly bigger, and that's a better fit in the hand. But other than that, you know, what's there to complain about? It's a lovely pen. So this is the Moonman M800 with Herbin Terre de Fouet. Pen number 3 is a Narwhal, and this is a Narwhal Schuylkill. This pattern is called Chrome's Teal. I love the colour. I mean, I've got browns in there, I've got blues, then we've got like a silvery type colour. We've got a little bit of, is that chatoyancy coming through? There we go. One last spin till we get back to the front. Piston filling pen. Love this. It takes an awful lot of ink. We've got an ink window here so we can see what our ink level is. That's really useful. My only whinge here is a little bit too small. I'd like to have seen it slightly wider. Taking off the cap. It's another number 6 nib. It's another nib that you can swap out if you want. I do have another Schuylkill pen and I have swapped the nib on it. And again, that's so easy to do. It literally, you pull it out, put the new one on and push it back in again. Nice, easy, friction fit nib there. Let's do some writing. So we've got Narwhal, which I've managed to spell incorrectly. Should be W-H-A-L. I should be sent back to school. It's the Schuylkill. In here is a medium nib. This is one of my complaints. I love the pen, but when I bought it, the widest nib I could get was a medium, and I would have really liked to have had a broad. Cost-wise, this was 69 Australian dollars, so about middle of the price range that we're looking at. My ink today is by Diamine, and it's AUD. This is a really nice looking ink. To me, I'm not going to say blue, I'm not going to say green, I'm not even going to say teal. It's a fairly unusual colour. I would say if I had to place it into a family, it's more on the blue side of the family, but yeah, tending towards that tealy type colours for me. I'll move the mic and write a sentence. So that's another nice smooth pen to write with. And even looking on here where I've done my grumpy wizards, I'm seeing a lot of shading coming through. Let's take a look at the Tomoe River paper. So here we are. Again, this is a nice pen to write with. A lot of the problem with these top 5s, I've got to be honest, I love all the pens and this is no different than the rest. It's just such a lovely pen to write with. Loads of shading coming through. I love pens and ink combinations where we get a lot of shading because to me, that just fetches character to my writing. Piston filler takes an awful lot of ink, means I don't really have to worry about it running out of ink every week or so, which is also nice to see. It's a nice consistent writer, no skips, no hard starts. Like a lot of my pens, and I know I do keep saying this, I can leave it a few weeks between uses, pick it up and it just writes. Not a lot in terms of line variation with this one. At the bottom you can see where I've got the first 3 lines, that's where it was just with very little pressure. The second 3 lines, that's with some pressure, so a tiniest bit of line variation. And if we look at the figure of 8s, you can see that going on. Overall, I know I keep saying this, it's a nice pen. Let's take a look at it in my hand. There we go. Fits really nicely. You know, it's comfortable. It's got a little bit of a lip at the bottom, so you know that you're actually getting to the end of the section. It will post, but it posts onto the filling mechanism. Now, yes, that's not a major issue. For me, I don't like it because I just worry that I'll accidentally twist instead of just pulling the cap off. But this is the Narwhal Schuylkill with Diamine AUD. The next pen is unusual in this price range because it's got a 14 carat gold nib. This is a Winsung 698 with a gold nib. Now, if you've seen my previous video on pens between $20 and $50, you'd have seen the 698 with a steel nib. As I say, this one's got gold. And it does seem to make a bit of a difference. The body on this is just a plain grey colour. Nothing really exciting about the body, is it? I mean, we've got to remember, we're not buying the pen for the body, we're buying it for how it writes. There's a number of different colours. When I ordered this, on the photograph, it did look more of a blue colour. So I was a little bit disappointed when it came out and it was grey. But in one respect, that's good because that means I can use any colour ink I want rather than sticking with the blue family. Let's take the cap off. So as I say, this has got that 14 carat look nib. One of the things I have noticed, this nib does get stained at the end. Now, I'm not sure if that's by design or just a fluke with this one. Hasn't impacted how it writes, but it does get stained. The pen is a piston filler. You can't see the piston mechanism because this body hides it. That's where I like the other 698 I have, which has got that transparent body. But we do have at the bottom here this ink window. Similar to the Narwhal, I would like to see that a little bit bigger. Let's see how this writes there. So we've got a wing sun, 698. This has got a medium 14 karat gold nib. Price wise, this was 72 Australian dollars. For a gold nibbed pen, that is really good value. The ink by Diamine, and it's writer's blood. I'll move the mic so you can hear the pen write. So what I tried to do there on the top line is I just wrote with the normal pressure that I would use. The bottom line, I tried to use a little bit more pressure so you can see the line variation coming through with this nib. I think it's a nice pen to write with. Let's take a look over on the Tomoe River paper. So here, as I'm saying, and I've done a previous video on this where I compared it against the steel nibbed version. This gold nib knocks this out of the park into another level. It's not without the issues. You know, we've got that issue with the staining. It's not as smooth to write with. It's not catching on the paper, but there's definitely is more feedback. I love the line variation that I'm getting. I love to see that. And that's why I did that last line. So hopefully that would come through in my writing. The bottom of this page, you can really see the line variation where I've got my 3 thin lines and my 3 thick lines, and then in that figure of 8. This ink is very wet, and I think that works well in this pen. I need to really try and find one of my inks that's a bit drier and try that, just so I can experiment and compare, but I love it. If we go back to the camera, and here's a pen in my hand. You can see there it's another nice fit, not too long, not too short. The cap, no, not really a poster, but that's fine. I don't need to use this pen posted. So this is the Wing Sun 698 with that 14 karat gold nib and Diamine writer's blood. Just going to reposition the paper for the final pen. Our final pen, it's actually another Narwhal. 2 Narwhals in this video. This is the Narwhal Key West, and the colour is Las Coraladas. It's a sparkly pen. You may be able to pick that up over the camera. Just look at that. Slowly turn it around for you. See all them sparkles. The pen, to my eye, is ever so slightly translucent, in that I think I can see through the body and see the converter in there. That could just be my wishful thinking. If I take the cap off, and there we are, there's a converter. Pop that back on. And we'll take a look at the nib. Again, it's a Narwhal nib. This time, it's a broad. In this pen, they've started doing broad nibs, and I really like that. Let's do some writing. So we've got a Narwhal Key West. And it's got a broad nib. The ink, it's Cult Pens, actually made by Diamine, and it's called Little Pip. Again, Gary cannot spell to save his life. Just going to do my sentence straight off. Let's move the mic. So that's another nice smooth pen. I like broad nibs because they always seem to go really well no matter what paper I'm using. Let's take a look at the Galen Leather 52 JSM notepad. There we go. So on this one, I'm calling out again, just like I've just said, it's a nice smooth nib and it seems to just glide over the paper. It's not glass smooth. There's that tiny bit of feedback, which means you know that it's writing. The ink's got some sheen to it. We'll take a look at the optic paper when we get back to that. The pen itself does feel a little bit on the short side. Again, I'll show you that in my hand when we get back to it. It's not enough to cause me a problem. It's not enough to mean that I need to have it posted. But if you've got larger hands, just be aware of that. The pen, it will post. Again, I'll show you that in a minute. I enjoy writing with it. Now, on here, I'm saying I've had no issues with hard starts or skipping. But when I was writing just now, you'd have seen on the G of Grumpy, I had a hard start. I've left that there, so we'll have another look when we get back to it. So again, be aware of that. Very little in the way of line variation. My 3 lines here, yes, I am seeing something, but I'm pressing really hard on that second 3. When I do my few figure of 8s, not getting any line variation in there at all. Let's go back to the optic paper. So there's the pen in my hand. I'm hoping you can see that this is what I mean by it feels a bit short. Now, it could actually be just because of the way it tapers back into that end. All the other pens I've got a fairly flat end where this tapers in. So that could be what makes it feel short. Posted, I'll say it does post. I have to give it a little bit of pressure, but once it's on, it stays on. Overall, it's not too bad. Pop that to one side. Let's take a look at the ink and see if we can see the sheen. So for me looking at it, I can see obviously the purple of the main ink, but then I see it looks like black to me. But if I can get this so it catches the light, there we go. Hopefully this is coming through on the camera. We've got a gorgeous gold sheen in there. Right there. Hopefully that's going to come through. Again, to me, that sheen just adds character to the overall experience. So this is the Narwhal Key West Las Coraladas with Cult Pen's Little Pip. Just reposition the paper so I can see a little bit of all my writing samples. So my top 5 pens between 50 and 100 Australian dollars. We've got the PenBBS 487 with Diamine Oxford Blue. We've got the Moonman M800 with J. Herbin Terre. We've got the Narwhal Schuylkill with Diamine AUD. The Wingsung 698 with Diamine's Writer's Blood. And the Narwhal Key West Las Coraladas with Cult Pen's Little Pip. So which of these 5 is going to be the winner of this week's video? And that winner, it will be going forward to the grand final in a few weeks' time. This is another one where I'm quite happy to say it was a very hard decision. As I said earlier on, I love the Moonman M800s. They're one of my favourite pens. I love the PenBBS 487. I love the way it writes. I love the longevity of the ink. I love the gold nib on this Wingsung 698. I love the colour and the feel of the Narwhal Schuylkill. I love the broad nib that I've got on this Narwhal Key West. And I had to pick one of them. So I did a lot of head scratching with this one and I decided the winner will go to the Narwhal Schuylkill with Diamine AUD, and that's the pen that will go forward to the grand final. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What do you think about my top 5 list? What do you think about my winner? Do you think it's a really good pen to move on to that grand final in a few weeks, where it will go up against the pens from all the other price ranges? Please drop a comment down below. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time someone likes, every time someone comments, well, it just helps the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.